And here we are, part two. Here we are, part two, because we got booted off. And we were talking about responsibility. And we were talking about how, for me, responsibility is key to freedom, because you can't change anything about anybody else. And until you take responsibility for yourself and your part and what's going on with you, that's the only place that you can operate from. It gives you the sense of freedom. Okay, I can take responsibility for that. Now I'm free. Whereas if you go, no, I'm not accountable, I'm not responsible, you stay stuck. So I see responsibility as a key going forward. Uh-oh, I'm getting all these weird messages too. Anyway, so what are your thoughts on that, Danusha?
Well, I've got a few thoughts. I'll quickly go back to the balance and focus, because I for some people just have that simple message, because we can get, again, we even now we're still getting entrapped in words and words and words, and like the divine feminine, the divine. This has been going on a few years now. To me, it's like what Keisha was saying. The simplicity of balance is when, whether you want to call it feminine, masculine, whatever, your balance is when you feel clear, neutral, focused, and confident with that. And that it's as simple as that. That's what it is to me. And when you're in that space, you know, and we're going to constantly learn through that. And what's coming into my head is, again, people think, well, this is my masculine side, that's the feminine side, as you know, this is that, this is this. Then it intertwines, thinking about the snake and medicine, and also as well to see on a bigger picture. I'll give a tiny example about me, and knowing that where I'm in my feminine, masculine, or where I consciously, should I say, may even think I am. And when I was doing some beautiful qigong movements the other day, and the way he was holding the mabu, and we were holding this power, it was so interesting how my masculine was so weak in holding the physical power. So then I was then in that realization, wow, I'm always thinking I've got my masculine strength, but it's like my feminine strength has been dominating my masculine. So it's like, oh, now I'm seeing where this sensitivity, sensuality, nurturing for myself is being dominated. I am over dominating my masculine, where it's like, well, my masculine, it's like, well, yeah, I want you to be the protector and, you know, that. And then the feminine, you're the nurture and the sensuality and the sensitivity. And it's like, oh, I've missed something inside myself. And I'm going to put that when Keisha mentioned Kuan Yin, because I've done a series of books, which I did publish but pull out, which they will go back out. It's 4 books with channeling, but personal story. There's my life story in there as well. And that was with Mary Magdalene. And the next series of books will be with Kuan Yin. And she beautifully came in anyway on the last ones. And what I'm going to show about the balance, because it never matters how these energies come to you, because it can be an illusion of, oh, they're this color, their eyes were that color, like Jesus. It's like, stop, that's stop. They were never here for that. And the message is still the same. It's what's inside and how you be in this world and live and treat others, humanity, etc. And Kuan Yin, I've not, well, connected with her, the compassion and the beauty and the sweetness, and people see that elegance. But what she showed me a few years ago, which did make me giggle, the side to her that he was so fierce, and her tiny little size 4 feet. And yes, exactly. So that's her masculine and feminine, the balance, where she might have been there on the swan. I've got her there, and you might not see, she's actually there in the background. You can't see, she's there in the background.
I
so
have her too.
There on the water and the compassion, but when she had to strike, she would. But that's all of us. That's what we are. We are the polarities. And when it's us seeing those polarities inside of ourselves, which some bits we don't like them polarities, but they exist in us. And that is it. It's a simplicity. And then I'm going to come to the word responsibility, because you're always, whether you consciously want to believe you're responsible or not, you're always going to be responsible because you exist in your human form. So whether you take it or not, it doesn't matter, or whether it's a conscious thing that you feel you've got to take responsibility. But for some people, that responsibility, or even feeling the word responsibility, is too much. That responsibility is too much. And that's okay, because, but I think we can put it in a word, but it doesn't mean they're not being responsible. It's just that word association might be too much for them. But if you give them another word of the same meaning, then they would be open to that. And that's where, again, we get entrapped in certain things. Because like when, for example, if I've worked with women and I've seen the anger inside and we've connected, and they're like, no, I don't get angry. And they actually don't like the word anger. But if we give other suggestions, say example in that moment, it'd be like, well, what irritates you? What do you feel a little bit bitter about? Who do you resent? Now it all comes to anger, and it all might have some internal rage, but it's just got a different word. And then they'll go, yeah, well, yeah, I do feel resentment to my mother for all she's done. And it's like, right, we're getting there, the layers. So this is it. Do you see how we just get lost in the words? We're always going to be the polarity. We're always going to be responsible, because nobody's responsible but us. We're our own heartbeat, our own brain.
Go, Keisha. Yes.
Oh, Keisha's off. She's off.
I love that. I believe I just, in the creation and projection forward, I don't believe we're always going to be in the polarity. I believe we are working through the understanding of what those polarities are. And what I'm also hearing and being reminded of, because I really do see us returning to Atlantean style, where there's harmony, there's health, there's oneness, and it isn't this world of extremes. Now, do we have some work to get there? Definitely. But you're also, Danusha, what you reminded me of in the simplicity, what came back to me to simplify for masculine, feminine, for me, what the masculine is that driving force that's very survival, like I'm going to get stuff done and I'm going to have a list and I'm going to boom, boom, boom. Whereas my feminine is this beautiful flow, creative expression of creativity and beingness, purely this flowing beingness. And reminds me again of that Cherokee saying of one of woman's greatest gifts is to be able to help man return, connect to source, to his source. And man's greatest gift is to allow woman to flow safely and gracefully through life. Yeah, so that's just like in very simple form, just one is very driving and go, go, go and do, and one is just like, oh, I can, be more air and more flow, and earth also, rooted and caring for the earth. But that's that simplicity of it. And as you were talking about responsibility, what happened for me was this separation of response, able. So we're all able to respond and choose. So whatever it is that we have to process, whether we want to do it on our own, which for some people, and even for myself, might feel inherently so, like certain things we might feel we want to process on our own. But just the other day, I called in the space for a women's circle and some sharing of fabrics exchange, and a sister was going through a really hard time. There was a shooting in the hometown where she was from, and she was far away, and she was getting all these messages here in Costa Rica. And the next day, I knew she wanted to be alone. I delivered some food, but naturally the women's circle went up and showed up in her room, even though she wanted to be alone. And later when she talked about it, she was like, as much as I wanted to be alone, I also really needed that. So going back to what you said, Ida, about, oh my gosh, that would feel,
it would overwhelm me.
Yeah, because we're also like, for whatever reason that's overwhelming for you. For me, what I hear in it was like the vulnerability to be seen, or to ask for help, or to say I'm not okay, is what I was processing today as I took some time to plan for today and like think about what are women calling for and what can we talk about. And I realized that I was unwilling to even admit that there's been some of this journey returning back to Costa Rica that's been freaking traumatic and really horrendous, you know, and to just be able to honor that and say that without any attachment and in a victim state, but just to honor that side that's like, this has been really challenging because I was bypassing a lot of my emotions, just like, okay, well, listen to spirit and keep going and keep flowing, but to the point where I kept ending up in this collapse. And a lady yesterday, maybe I forget the name of it, but she drew a diagram for our neurological system, how the normal pattern, we have these ups and downs, but if you go up beyond that curve, you're in the fight or flight. And if you go beyond that, you're in collapse. And then even when you go back down to rest and relaxation, you got to go back down through fight or flight. And then
Yes.
get down into relaxing. And so I'm so blessed to be here with Chloe and share space and home and just come back into myself, which, you know, this morning was a really big win because I also heard Chloe's voice reminding me, like she mentioned, the male that she knows spends his time in the morning preparing himself. And I've had some resistance to regular meditation and just kind of feeling all over the place and not knowing how to ask for help. And sometimes when I do ask for help, feeling like there's some shaming and some response from certain people. So not also having a consistent network of like energies to be able to reach out or on speed dial per se, you know, and just say, hey, I just need someone who will just feed me the good things instead of like, well, here, I'll help you, but by the way, you're, you know, a horrible person, or by the way, and throw stuff in the moment of already, you know, vulnerability and not feeling well and not
Oh,
safe.
Keisha, I can relate to this so much. I'm in a really horrible spiral myself right now, and it's moment to moment. And I've been talking to Danusha, so bless Danusha, about these ups and downs and attacks and how to, you know. So I totally relate to what you're saying. But if a whole circle came and surrounded me now, I would be like, no, I can't. I did a program. Do you guys know that book, The Course of Miracles?
Yeah.
Have you heard of it? Yeah. So I did a group called Clear Mind. Have you heard of them? Clear Mind. They were out of Vancouver and they worked with the Course of Miracles. So it was all I think their philosophy is where the problem starts is our separation from God, the separation, right? That's where the problems all started for us as humanity, our separateness from God and not, yeah, okay? So
that God is within us, not outside of us.
Yes. I think they preach that too. So, so you're disconnected from you. Basically, you're God and you're disconnected from you and separate from you, which is the God in you. So they did this thing called the Circle of Fire. You know how when you do a group weekend healing thing, there's like different what do they call them? Different programs they do. And they did this thing called the Circle of Fire. And they chose me as one of the people inside the Circle of Fire. And they chose a dude who couldn't stand me, who was saying out loud that I took up too much space and whatever, right? They put us both in circles. So I was in one circle inside, and people were all surrounding me with their arms clenched like this, you know, holding a circle. And then he was in another circle inside of it with them. And what our task was to focus on each other to get out of the circle. The circle was fire, right? And I actually had to look at him and focus on him, knowing he hated me and thought I took up too much space. And I was looking at him, I don't like you, you know, and we needed each other to complete this exercise, right? And it was like, holy fuck, I'm putting my head down. So this is how I got out of the circle. I was like, I'm not looking at him. I put my head down and I fucking charged. like to break through, and they wouldn't let me. And their job, the people that were on the outside, was to sling arrows at me verbally. You're bad, you're nothing but a bitch, you take up too much space. So it's all the noise in my head they represented, his noise towards me.
Yep.
And I had to say, you're fucking wrong, and like try to go out, right? But I was supposed to focus on him. I couldn't. I put my head down and it was like, I'm coming through. I'm coming through. You bastards are wrong. You know? And the instructor said, Ida, look up. Because I had my head down like a football player. And he said, look up. And I looked up and there was the dude. The dude that thinks I take up too much space. And I just looked at him and I thought, they let me out of the circle, you know. I couldn't break out of it with him or on my own. And then what they forced me to do is have the circle come all around me and hug me, with me in the middle, with all these bodies hugging me and saying beautiful things to me. You're so precious, in my ear with this music. It was so overwhelming, I'm telling you. I thought I was going to this thing where I was going to paint myself blue and run naked through the forest. And it was all about doing this heavy duty emotional work.
Oh, I do. You make me laugh, you do.
No, but can you imagine? I thought I was really...
Well, it's not that. I'm not you, so I can't imagine it, but it's you. I thought I was going to a forest to be painted blue.
Yes, you know, that whole idea of you're going to chill and be silent, and there's
going to be an avatar.
And this is what I got. It was so shocking to me. I was like, anyway, so this reminds me, how did I get to that circle? What were we talking about?
Well, how did you, after the hugs and all that, what happened then?
After I got out of the circle and they hugged me and everything, they did another exercise, but with me, with a different person. I have to tell you, I've never experienced anything like this.
Okay. First question, Ida. What was it about him that you could not be with?
His judgment of me.
What's the mirror?
Well, the fact that I take up a lot of space. I know I do. My daughter, I went on a holiday and she said, Mom, it's amazing not to feel you here. Because she said, even living together, my presence is so big and overwhelming.
And what does that mean to you? And where do you feel that?
Well, Danusha and I did a rebirthing thing. And even in the womb, I was very, very big, I took up lots of space inside the womb. And so it became very difficult for me to get out, to be born, because I was too big. So the place that I got back to where I didn't feel so big was inside the womb at 6 months. And that's where I was at peace because I had enough room. I wasn't feeling too big or taking up too much space to my own detriment. That's the part, to my own detriment, taking up space to my own detriment.
That doesn't feel like truth over here. I hear you. And what's coming through over here is that your light is meant to expand and continue to project.
Yeah, that's what Danusha said.
And so what I also heard was that he was unable to be with you as a mirror, that non-divine masculine, so to speak, or the older ancestral, that older inherited masculine version.
He didn't like women. He did not like women. He admitted to that.
Sure, there's that also. And there's something for him about being able to take up space and to be able to take it up in a way that's just as light. So he was that bipolar opposite of taking up space. He's in a circle too, and he's taking up just as much space, whether he wanted to see it or admit it or not in that moment. but he's taking it up in the opposite side. And so your light was like, let me out, let me out, let me out, as opposed to, you know what? It's like a partner said to me one time, I was angry and I was relating in the way that I'd witnessed family relate in a sense. And I just knocked over a water bottle. Spatial awareness. And he said to me, well, Keisha, I'm just gonna love you anyway. And here I am like, like just over something ridiculous too, like, all right, I'm just gonna love you. And there was nothing I could, there was nowhere to go. It was like there was an inner part of me like, oh, I love you, that's so sweet. And the other part was like, no. You know, the masculine was like, you know, like throwing a tantrum. Yeah.
Wow.
And so the other question though, thank you for walking through with us with that one. The other part is for when everyone was hugging you and saying sweet nothings or beautiful things about your being, where did you feel it in your body? Why was it uncomfortable?
That's such a good question. Well, here's my mind saying to me, if I
May
take up a lot of space.
Yeah. I'm just being called to, if you're willing to take 3 breaths into the heart, close your eyes and like go back and feel and sense, if you're willing to, and see what arises. Like, what is it about?
It is about taking up space again, almost needing space, because if I don't get the space I need, then I feel claustrophobic. It felt like it's too much coming in at me and it's hard for me to receive this all at once. It's a receiving thing too, right? It's hard for me to receive all of that love showering and pouring down on me.
Why?
It's probably because I don't know what it's like to truly feel loved, firstly by myself, and then having had the experience of not feeling that way from very small, like I have a memory at 18 months of being in a crib, and understanding at that 18 months, the message that I perceived at 18 months that I took in was, I'm not lovable. So that's carried through, right? And so yeah, I think them coming in is like, okay, I have to receive this. I'm not ready to receive this. I need space to process what the fuck just happened to me. Getting out of that circle of fire with that dude. I need to process, and these people are not giving me any like time. It's just like zoop, you know? And then it's like, oh, you're this, oh, we love this. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I'm still back there at the ring of fire when you were shouting at me what a bitch I was, what you know. It was so weird. I didn't have space to process and then receive the goodness because there was no space to process. It was going from being told I'm all these horrible things to, hallelujah, you're wonderful, you're, you know.
Yes, you didn't. Yes.
There was no space for me to transition.
Yes.
And that's what felt claustrophobic. That's why it was so hard for me to receive. Thank you for questioning this because it's bringing me lots of clarity. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Pleasure. Thank you for walking us through it and discovering openly. And also,
sorry, just
yes. Hello, Source is calling to let you know you're doing marvelous work and you're also loved.
I love that.
I'm curious, what would have made the difference for you to help you transition? If you could create it in your imagination in this moment, if it's there for you, what would you have liked to have happened?
So the first thing I think of is I required a safe space to be vulnerable. That transition didn't happen, right? It was going from this to this without the space in between to feel safe, to feel, okay, let me take in what just happened. I feel like I've been abused, like I've been beaten up. And then they're telling me all these things that don't feel real because they just beat me up, you know?
So
And
they
so
battered you and then they gave you ice cream.
yeah, and then I need to go to a safe space, like somewhere where I can just be vulnerable with myself and you know, just say it's okay. It's okay. You know, of course, love, you would feel this way. You would feel shaky, you would feel sad, you would feel lost, you would feel like you're grieving. I didn't get the chance to do all of that. It was from bang to bang, you know.
So to have that,
You know what that is reminding me of? Sorry, Danusha. The thing that I've been saying lately to myself is Danusha, sorry, Keisha. The thing that I've been saying to myself lately is I am the only safe place I know.
Hmm.
And that's what I needed to transition. I needed to be my own space of safety, and I felt like I didn't have the opportunity.
And so what would that look like in 3D format? Would that look like,
I would leave and maybe go sit under a tree,
mhm,
hug a tree,
mhm,
go to lay down. I like laying down in bed. Bed feels very safe to me. And
mhm,
I would talk to my small self, that 18-month old, like I do. I talk to that toddler, that little baby, and I tell them, you know what? I know this didn't happen for you back then, but I can do this with you now. The adult me can scoop you up and co-regulate and love on you, like no rescue you. Nobody rescued me at 18 months. It was horrible.
mm,
And just do provide that 18-month old with what they didn't receive that makes them freaked out about people loving them.
mm.
You know what I mean? Can you guys see that?
Feeling it, the safety.
Yeah.
I'm my own safety, and I have to encourage all those little parts that still carry beliefs about themselves that aren't true. They aren't true. They came in from the outside because I couldn't, at that age and at that space and time, I couldn't choose anything other than to receive it, right? But now as an adult, I can. I can choose whether or not, like, I'm going to allow shit in or not. And I can be there for that part of me that needs it. It hurts. It's like moment to moment. Yeah. I feel the love just in you receiving me right now, both of you, or three of you, with Chloe's over there somewhere, I think. I I can feel the three of you receiving me. Do you know what? This doesn't have or hasn't, I'm going to say it this way. This hasn't happened often for me. So it's a really yeah, I'm just grateful. Just grateful.
Mm.
Oh my God, we're running out of time. 10 minutes.
We got
Anything
10.
anybody want to says, because I do have a phone call coming from the bank soon. So is there anything anybody wants to add in our last 9 minutes and 47 seconds?
I would personally love to um, acknowledge you for going through that train of remembrance. And the other question I have is, in your processing by the tree and whatnot, would you have been alone in that process, or would you have liked even one person to be that you knew well, just on your own? Gotcha.
Yeah. So, sorry, Danusha, did you want to say something?
We just constantly remind ourselves how we are as those children or toddler. What was coming up for me was that 18-month-old. It's almost like that part wants to go now. That's how it feels.
Mm.
Feels like, right, we've done some birth. It's just like that part. It's like, can you let me go now? You don't need to keep looking after me. You don't need to keep telling me I'm safe. You can just enjoy being the woman that you are, with all the beautiful wisdom, all the child in you that will always exist. It just needs to be reminded of the things that you did enjoy, and maybe that's the part to remember what you did enjoy. And if you, obviously it's trust, isn't it? When we're with people, it's trust. And then that's why we become the parts of us that we don't like, and then these people mirror image them, whatever relationship that is. And it doesn't always have to be a personal relationship. It could be a relationship to money, a relationship to our own health. It just constantly keeps communicating with us. And when we see that side of like, well, I want to go to the tree by myself and not anybody being there, then that just very simply says, well, that's what always was, that you weren't given those cuddles or like heard or felt, that if you were crying, you were just cradled and like what I would have done with my son, just like kiss, 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 you know, like, oh, just be. Not even like, oh no, it doesn't worry, or you know, trying to stop the crying, or you know, it doesn't matter, it's all right. Oh, he's a lollipop to shut you up. It'd be like, no, just be. Just be. I can't say I did it every single time, you know, but
Yeah.
majority of the time, a good 90% plus, I would be with him, with his sensitivities falling over, his cut finger, his, oh, I can't cope with things, the overwhelming.
I love that for him and you.
Well, it doesn't always work like that.
No.
He never always felt like that. I ain't perfect. I've done a lot of imperfections, and that has taught me much greatness. That I'm not perfect, don't wish to be, but I'm deeply loving. Deeply, deeply loving. And well, it's that thing, once you have my love, then it's like it just exists. Naturally, if you betray it and you slam it, well, we've got some roads to go down. But it's almost like being the faithful dog. Yeah, I am that.
I love the clarity of how well you know yourself, Danusha. I know you're not perfect. I know you're not perfect. And I know there's times when you have stuff too. But when you show up, Mom, when you show up, Mother Teresa Danusha. Oh, I don't like Mother Teresa, so let's not say her.
Yeah.
But when you show up, boy, there's a lot of clarity. Go ahead, Keisha. What do you? We've got 5 minutes.
I still would like to bless Mother Teresa's being for all the ways she was and all the ways she wasn't, and anything that wasn't. We are responsible to be the opposite and carry forward what does work. And I would love to share what came through if you ladies are open to it.
We have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Clear. So for the roundtable honoring wombed men, wombed men, WOMBEDMYN, wombed men, sensuality, sacred temples, yoni eggs, pleasure, orgasm, laughter, play, fun, teepee lovemaking, natural ways, natural sounds, feminine flow, wild warrior haircuts. Some days living in future waves. Some days living in future waves, forgetting to flow in now. Now remembering I know how to surf with the tides, currents I ride, dancing in moonlight. Peace and joy, our birthright, Spirit, please hold us tight. For directions, I have missed cues. Bypassed processing, self-abuse, perfectly issued or inner chi misused. Heart wide open, matters most is truth. Truth is what I see, depth inside of we. Universal key, may all flow harmoniously. Some days breathing in gratitude gracefully resets all moods. Imagining body surfing today perfectly.
That was amazing. Yay. Okay. I love all you guys. The successful single mom, who wrote that? Who wrote it, Keisha? Honoree Corprone. Do you know this person?
Not personally, but the book came to me, and I feel like this would be great for a continuation of Roundtable because it touches on that process that you went through today of honoring the child, but also anything that people have told us that's not, and affirming positively. And this is a 100-day challenge done by single moms, so I feel like there's something in this moving forward for everybody.
You know, when you're ready, send us a link and set up that roundtable.
Okay.
I love you guys. Thank you for being present.
Welcome.
Lovely to have met you, Chloe.
Take
I
care.
want to show you this was on our walk day.
Oh,
Oh, how beautiful.
wow. A butterfly going into the moon?
Yeah, it's a
Wow.
mothy.
Yeah.
Woohoo. See
So
you,
creative.
lovelies.
Until next time.
Thank
Bye.
you.